So you notice my ukulele sounded slightly different in that playing example today, and that's because I am tuned down a half step. So we're going to talk about what that means and some of the upsides and downsides to doing so right now. So what does it mean to tune your uke down a half step? So normally when you look at your little clip-on tuner or tuning app, you're tuning your uke G, C, E, A from top to bottom. So what it means to tune down a half step is you're going to take every note down by one half step. So what that means is my G string will now become an F sharp. So when I go to tune my G string here, my tuner is going to read F sharp. And if you don't know what the sharp symbol is, the sharp symbol looks like the hashtag symbol, or what we used to know as the pound sign on a telephone. So first note on the top string will be F sharp. Now something about tuning when you're going to tune down. What you want to do is you want to actually take your string below the F sharp and bring it back up to F sharp. So if you're looking at your tuner, you'll see that the little wand kind of goes below F sharp, and then you want to bring that back up to the middle so it's sitting right back on F sharp. Now I'm referring to if you're using one of these clip-on tuners, but a lot of you probably use tuners that have the readout where you kind of have to bring it to the center. So the reason you want to do that is you will always want to tune up to the note. You don't ever want to bring it down to a note. So that's just something to keep an eye on as you're tuning to make sure that it stays in tune. Now that's something we'll talk about a little bit later. So my next note here, which normally would be C, is going to read B, as in boy. So down a half step again, C and B are two of the places in the scale that are right next to each other. So if you tune down a half step from C, you're going to be playing the B note. My third string, which is normally tuned to an E, will read D sharp. So the D sharp note is a half step below, and then finally, normally, which is my A string, is tuned to a G sharp. So here's a little example of kind of bringing that up to pitch. So I'm right around G sharp now, so I'm going to kind of slightly go below that, and then I'm going to raise my pitch by tightening the string until I get sitting right on the G sharp note. So that is how you tune down a half step. And now I'm going to talk about some of the upsides and downsides of doing so. All right, so let's talk about some of the upsides and downsides now that we know how to tune down. One of the biggest upsides that I would say is for singers. So let's say that there's a song that just seems like it's a little too high in your register. So you're trying to play the song, it's in the key of C, but some of the high notes that you're trying to hit, you're just not able to achieve. So this is something that I do as a singer when I perform live, is I actually take and tune my uke down a half step. Now what that does is that kind of opens up my range just slightly so that I can get to some of those higher notes that I wasn't able to hit when I was in standard tuning. So one of the biggest things I would say, and this is kind of comparable to using a capo to change keys, but you're just going in the opposite direction. So for singers, this might be something you want to explore. If there's a song or two that just feel like they're a little too high in the range for you to sing, you might want to try tuning down. Now, one of the downsides to doing this is, let's say you're trying to play along with a song recording on Spotify or Apple Music or something, and you're trying to play the song in the exact same key as the song. Well, if you tune down a half step, you're going to notice that your uke sounds completely crazy going up against the song recording. So that's one of the downsides, is that playing with recordings might be kind of weird feeling. Actually, it'll feel really bad because it's going to be in a completely different tuning. But one of the upsides is that you are going to be able to sing with a little bit more ease. The second reason that you might want to tune down your ukulele is for ease of play. So let's say the tension of the strings there's certain chords that are really hard for you to press down, or maybe you're just learning how to play the uke, so you're building those calluses on your fingertips. So by loosening the tension of the strings and tuning down a half step, you're actually going to make it easier for yourself to play. Now, don't be afraid, because all of the chord shapes that you're learning will be exactly the same. However, all of the chords will be named a half step below. So for instance, a C chord would be called a B chord because you're going down a half step when you tune it, so it actually takes the whole chord down a half step. You don't actually have to change the shape. However, I do feel like it's a good idea. Maybe you have arthritic fingers, it's a little tougher for you to press down the strings. This is a good way just to kind of relieve some tension as you build your calluses, and then you can always tune up as you go later. But for the time being, it might be cool for you to kind of try with a little looser tension. Now, one of the downsides to this is, if you only have one uke, which a lot of us only have one uke, not myself, but a lot of us have one uke, and tuning back and forth can kind of mess with the intonation of the instrument. So I don't recommend kind of taking your uke and tuning it down every day and then tuning it back up later in the day, because that does put some stress on your strings to kind of continuously change the tension of them. So I would suggest, if you do have more than one uke and you want to try experimenting with this, take the uke that you don't play so often and maybe tune that one down a half step and try it. Try some of the chords, try singing with it, see if the tension feels better to you, and then if you like it, now you have both options for you as you play, and that's a pretty cool thing. So, kind of summary there, good for less tension if you're trying to relieve some stress in your hands, but bad maybe because it will change the intonation if you have one uke. So a few more reasons that you might want to tune down a half step. One would be for style and variety. So I know a few of you have probably heard the song Riptide before by Vance, and you probably noticed when you tried to play along with the recording that his uke sounds like it's almost in a baritone range, and he's actually playing a standard tuning uke, but he's tuned it down a whole step. So what that does, it kind of creates a whole different vibe to the instrument and a whole different vibe to the recording. So let's say you're a songwriter or you're just trying to experiment with some different sounds. Downtuning is a way that you can kind of change the whole sound of the instrument just with a tuning. So it might be something that you want to do if you're experimenting or just kind of looking for a little different sound out of your instrument. For example, when I'm writing a song, and there's a couple songs, one called Seaside and one called Miss Sunny Day, which you could check out on Spotify if you would like to, that I tuned down the instrument. Now the reason I did that was because of my vocal range, but also because I was going for a little different stylistic approach. I was trying to make the instrument sing a little bit differently than normal. So kind of just a stylistic thing that you might want to do to kind of just add a little variety to your playing. So one more thing I wanted to mention, and this might just pertain to those of you who are uke performers. So something that I like to do as a performer, when I have to take my uke out and plug it into a PA system, is what I like to do is I like to tune it down a half step. Now why do I do that? Well, for one reason it's easier to sing for me, but the second reason is I feel like it's a little bit warmer sounding through a speaker. So uke being tuned in this kind of high range can kind of sound very chingy and almost piercing sometimes, depending if you have EQ capabilities when you're performing. So I actually feel like when you tune it down a half step, it just creates a fully warmer sound through the PA system, which I think is a little bit more pleasant on your ears. That's not to say that a standard tuning is not going to be pleasant to the ears, but I've just found from personal experience that tuning down a half step does sound a little bit warmer when you're performing. So it's something you might want to try. I wouldn't say that you have to do this, but again, these are just options, and I kind of want to just let you know about tuning down a half step. All right, so now we're going to take a look at a couple of examples here for you. So now I'm playing my Kala Zerakote concert uke here that's in standard tuning. So just listen to the difference here between standard tuning and a half step down. So this uke is in standard tuning G, C, E, A from top to bottom. So here is how that sounds. G, C, E, A. Now, let me pick up my half step down tuning, cedar top tenor uke. Now we're going to play same strings, but now we're tuned F sharp, B, D sharp, and G sharp. So it's a subtle difference, but there is definitely a difference when you tune down a half step. Well, let's take a look at a couple of playing examples now. So I'm just going to play a C, A minor, F, G7 standard progression here in standard tuning. So take a listen to this, and then right after that, I'm going to play it a half step down. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now listen to the same progression with a half step down tuning. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now just for fun, let's take a look at what it would sound like in standard tuning versus half step down with a finger picking progression. So I'm just going to go C, C major 7, C7, and F here. So here we go. 2, 3, 4. And now, let's take a look at that exact same finger picking progression here, and I'm just going to do it with a half step down tuning. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I hope you found this video informative, and let me know if you try tuning down a half step. Leave your comments below. Let me know if you have any questions about this as well. I'd be happy to get back to you and let you know. So in this lesson, we talked about tuning down a half step, some of the upsides and downsides, and maybe why you wouldn't want to do it. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe, click that little alert button so you know when the next video is coming out, and I'll put together some exercises on allforuke.com. If you want to check those out, you can download the PDFs. My name is Kevin. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope to see you next time for another uke video.